going back to this after another tangent. I'm the king of tangents. I'm sorry. Wonder Woman's had some great eras, especially post-crisis. I think post-crisis, it's been, for the most part, pretty stellar. They'll have some eras that I'm not as interested in other, but, George, is just...
Wade's a guy that we talked about where he's somebody who can do pretty much anything in the DC universe and do no wrong. Though I think the one exception is Wonder Woman, because I think if he read it, he must not have liked it. But I get the feeling that he didn't read that stuff, because I never see him draw from Wonder Woman the way he can from Superman, Batman, basically anybody else.
Yeah, she's very static in his stuff. Very, just standing there being majestic and beautiful and being, a little more well adjusted. So Superman's well adjusted. Batman is not well adjusted. She's somewhere in between. I got the Gail Simone DC Finest, and I love Gail Simone, but I don't. I never really followed her stuff. And I read her Wonder Woman. It was really good. I think it's the first half of her run. It's really good. It's entertaining. It's like I read Perez's and then Jill Thompson and Perez and then Byrne. I mean, I think there've been some good ones. I would like to read the Rucka one intrigues me, but I've never dipped in because I like Greg Rucka, but I'm like, how does he write Wonder Woman? But I didn't see how Tom King would write Wonder Woman. I've really enjoyed his iteration.
Tom King has a reputation, and I've mostly avoided his stuff, but it seems like he actually has a pretty good handle on Wonder Woman.
He does, and here's he has a reputation because fans. I try not to do this anymore, but there are people I dislike. There's a rap he gets about. He talks about trauma, and it's like, well, he lived trauma, so shut up. I mean, you write what you know.
I was reading a review in an old Amazing Heroes the other day where they were griping about Jim Starlin talking about Catholicism, and it's like, that's one of his things. This is creators have themes that they work in. If you're tired of reading Jim Starlin Catholicism stories, then just don't read them, but don't tell him he has to stop processing what is his life,
His Catholic guilt. And it's King, it's like, I'm not going to defend everything King did. Identity crisis is abhorrent. And that's an editorial issue. Someone needed to say no and change this because this makes no sense and it's awful. But he wanted to tell a story about therapy, and he's probably in therapy. I mean, he's a vet.
It was also a situation where I think Dan Didio was telling him specific things he wanted to have done. I think specifically the Wally Wood stuff. I mean, the Wally West stuff. So that was a compromise project all around. So I try not to put all the blame of that for him. Something like Danger Street, that's all him. But
I love Danger Street. Mm-hmm. I absolutely loved it.
And I haven't read it. I've heard a lot of negativity, but
I do recommend you reading the DC first specials. Kind of like when I did my episodes about it, every issue was named after the character that was in. So issue 1 was Lady Cop, so it's Lady Cop or whatever it was. So they get all these characters are in it, all of them, including the New Gods, even though they don't do the 13th. They don't do a 13. They just do 12. But it's just basically a murder mystery with all these characters. So you're kind of shoehorned there, and they don't feel shoed in. You don't have to know them. He does stuff with characters, and people go, "Why would that character do it?" Because that character was in DC, like Warlord and Starman are friends, and them and Metamorpho are trying to join the Justice League, and their stunt to do it gets a kid killed. That's the kind of mystery of it. So you see Warlord and Michael Thomas thing, and people are going, Warlord would never do that. It's like, yes, he would if your universe only consisted of these 12 characters, really, because he had read it and wanted to try some. I found it very intriguing, and it ultimately was actually really, really good, really good. I didn't know him until I read his Rorschach. I had read stuff, but that made me really want to read his other stuff.
Yeah, I picked up Omega Men because so many people loved it and were pimping it, and everybody had already struggled to figure out what to do with the Omega Men anyway. And with Danger Street, I think it's clear that this isn't part of continuity anyway.
Oh, no, it is not continuity in any way, shape, or form.
So, let it be the Elseworld that it is. I don't think...
It is. It's very much this weird Elseworlds. It was a 1970s John Schlesinger film. It's like, it's really odd. Lady Cop, and I'd stop calling her that. I just started calling her because the character kept going. She appeared in other things. People had read Lady Cop and put her in there just under the character's name, real name, because she's not a superhero. She's just a cop. But it's intriguing, and it's, and creators are, with Tom King, it's like I'm a big fan of most of everything he does. But I grew up around, I grew up where he lives, and what he writes a lot about trauma being, going and doing something. My father was a Marine, and family history and stuff like that, and he talks openly about his mental health, and I kind of like that, and you see it in his writing. That action heroes would be a little messed up. They should be a little off kilter, and think about it. So, but yeah, that's me gushing about it. I don't think he's a big Silver Age. I don't see a Silver Age influence in him anywhere.
No, I really feel like he's a modern guy. He's somebody who read some Alan Moore and is like, I'd like to do something like this,
Yeah, I mean, but I like that he's doing Wonder Woman. I like he jumps around. I like I like to see. I'm a big Jeff Lemire fan, and he's writing Justice Society. I'm enjoying it, but I like to see him. He goes. I found him from his independent stuff, and then started reading his superhero stuff, and went, oh, this is really good superhero stuff.
Well, and you've done Black Hammer, I assume, because that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing I love him for most. That I started with #1.
Well, especially you talking up James Robinson on Starman. It's clear he read the same books you did, and is trying to recapture that same magic.
I'm the same age as he is. I think I'm about the same age as Morrison, and they're probably 60 now. I'm not. I wouldn't be. They may be a little young, but they're not much younger than me because they started their. I don't know. I'd have to look. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they started when they're 20s. Because I'm not. It's just. But there's that whole. I joke about it on the podcast. All those Scottish guys loved Silver Age Superman. Loved it. Morrison, Moore. I don't know about Millar. I'm not a big fan of Millar. Sometimes he's one of those writers that tweak.
So here's the thing:
when I read something that I'm entertained by, I like it. But most of the time, I don't go looking for his books because they're too grim.
His Superman Adventures is good because that's before he decided he needed to be an edgelord to get everybody's attention, and he was just writing Superman stories in the mode that you talked about, loving the Silver Age stuff. His Superman Adventure stuff is what you want. And you don't worry about the rest of it, but that stuff is worth reading. Yeah,
I mean, I read it's violence is comedy or violence porn is a lot what I say he writes, because sometimes it's like, man, we can cut this back now. It worked for Warren Ellis for 12 issues, and I think that's it's all he wanted to do. Now you've done 2 more years or 3 more years of this in Authority.
That's what I don't like with Miller is that he clearly doesn't love his characters. He loves the sadism.
That's a good analogy. I hate a writer or producer who doesn't like the characters they're working with. It's really annoying. It's kind of odd. There's a Doctor Who script editor in the 80s that most of us go, oh, that's why we don't like this stuff's so rough, is you don't like your characters. You don't like the Doctor. So, so I have to have physical media. My wife has had to learn that. I will always have every Doctor Who. I will always have every Star Trek because they'll move it.
Yeah, I'm constantly wanting to watch something streaming that isn't there, and then I have to go back and dig it out of my DVDs or my Blu-rays or what have you.
Oh God, what? Yeah, I did something. I was on Billy's magazine, The Monsters, and we did Andromeda Strain. It was not on streaming, and I said, I love the Andromeda Strain. There's a Blu-ray for $9.99. I'll buy it because I'll watch it again. I've watched it about 20 times in my life. And the day it came in the mail, it was available for free on Amazon.
Of course.
I was like, my wife was, are you mad? And I said, no, it's the way the world works. I don't buy stuff from them digitally. I have, because it's the only way to get it. I've got like 2 or 3 things on my Amazon, but I don't buy digital from them. I don't have a problem with the streaming service. They got to figure a way to make it more profitable, not me,
Right.
They just didn't think and just kept, doing stuff thinking you're always going to make that level of money. And then, hey, no, we all had to go back to work. So we're not all sitting in our house making sourdough bread, watching straight runs of 20-year-old television shows.
Well, we can still do that. We're just going to do it on like Tubi now instead for free with the ads,
My wife asked me one time, because I didn't get married until I was in my 50s. And she asked me, what's one thing you miss about being while we're about not being married? I went, being able to just plug in and watch, 11 seasons of Supernatural over the course of 3 weeks and not have to worry about what other things I have to watch. She's like, really? Yeah. Cause I would just watch one show, I'm a big TV nerd. I like that method of delivery. I want to say art form, but I like it can be a very good, satisfying delivery system for stories. And I think about 10 years ago, it was pretty much a golden age again. Like shows I didn't watch, like Mad Men, but I would come in, okay, you've got millions of viewers, you're doing something right. And just, writers being in charge, which was nice to see the writers in charge for a while.
See, I love Mad Men, but it's also such a heavy show that I only wanted to watch an episode a week or so. Something like Supernatural, you can just shotgun, but Mad Men, like, it's just so heavy. It's such a drama, such a dense drama, so much to absorb that it's like, I'm good with just watching this one time and then we'll come back to this again in a week, So I like having different options depending on what the material is.
I have, this is my get off of my yard old man thing is I'm tired. I will not watch any shows that glorifies mobsters anymore. Screw you, Martin Scorsese. Stop it.
Same.
They're not nice people. They're terrible people. Stop making them somewhat empathetic. I don't have any empathy for a gangster. And rich white people. Like my wife watched Succession. I don't care about rich white people. Why are we watching? These are not people to emulate. They're, all these stories about bad people. But don't you want to understand them? I understand them. They're bad people. They're greedy. They're what this or that. I just, I don't get it. So I'm very particular. It's like, I will not. My wife says, you don't want to watch this? Nope. It's all about, like, what's the one about the resort? White Lotus.
Oh, can't. Yeah, no.
Yeah, my buddy and me were talking about it. I'd be napalm in that island. Just get rid of these insects, these parasites. But I do, physical media is important. I think people were, it's the end of physical media. It's the end of physical media. It's like, no, you have nerds that have borderline hoarding issues. I was a club. I could not, there's something about being a collector and being a completist, like that comic book fans. And I don't mind the nerd. I'm a nerd. And, and Star Trek, I started with Star Trek was my first big geeky hang on. Like, I got to know everything about it. My brother would go, okay, let's get him the novel I could read. So they'd buy me the cheesy David Gerald novel. So I would try to make it all fit in my head canon because I was that kid.
Yeah. I don't understand. I still don't fully understand the LPs just because I was happy to get rid of cassettes and LPs back in the day. I didn't feel the need to collect that the way I do.
It's an awful lot of space.
It's a lot of space. But the fact that LPs came back, you don't think movies come back? And they already are back. There's, I go to like the strip malls and stuff, and there's always multiple booths of people selling physical media. There's always a demand for it. Maybe it'll be niche sometimes, maybe it'll be popular sometimes, but it's never going to go away. And the main thing is just making sure that the distributors are healthy enough in the lean times that they stick around, so they're there to release the stuff when things are more popular. But it's already coming back. We're already seeing crazy stuff.
I saw Matt Damon talk about it, and he was explaining how streaming and the pandemic have really hurt creators, other than just the studios are cheap pricks. Was that they would make a movie. It would be in the theaters for a month. If you got lucky, 2 months. International sales, rental, selling to rental outlets. But then once you could sell once DVDs became $20, VHS became $19.99 instead of $100. And like people like me, like I bought all the VHS for Star Trek and other things. You know what I mean? A new movie, I got it. That's where they made their money because they got like 25% of that if they were the producer. You know what I mean? They got a huge, because it was selling the millions, like LPs. You know what? Because I grew up in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, probably one of the richest counties in Virginia. It didn't have cable until 86 or 87.
Damn.
I would moved away. So you only had, living in Northern Virginia, right near the Potomac. We got all the DC channels and all the Baltimore channels. So we had like 12 stations, but most places had 3. So it's, physical media, it needs to come back because that's the only way the artists are going to make any money. And that's the way I think about it. When people say boycott something because someone's a piece of crap, and I don't buy stuff from people that I don't. If you say something racist, sexist, homophobic, I'm not, you're not going to get my money. You end up being kind of a creepy perv. I don't have anything to do with it. But, I still have stuff owned by people, and I watch stuff that was created by people I don't like or did it. But I also went, well, they didn't do it right every episode of this. And there are hundreds of people, thousands of people working on that show that, don't get paid if it don't get made. And I don't know how like DVD sales help those people. I'm assuming they get a penny or two. It probably isn't much, but it's like, I also do it to support the artist because that's where they're making, who was it? Well, I saw some writer who hadn't written something in a while, and oh my God, it was one of the recent Marvel Omni had come out, and it was like the Inker or something, I think, and well-known then or something. I can't even remember, kind of blanking on it. But he got his promo for this, and he goes, "Yeah, my royalties from this book was a down payment on a brand new car." And I'm like, "Damn!" And you know what I mean? It's like, so they're making money off this, and so it's like, okay, if I'm buying this omnibus, it's 25 years old, someone's getting a taste. As long as they're getting a taste, I'm happy. I feel,
Well, I think one of the most important for creators. I think one of the most important things is that accounting. Like, who comes up with the numbers for streaming? How do you verify those numbers?
Streaming doesn't even know that. That's the thing. It's going to go back to commercial television. I think it's just all. Me and my wife don't pay for the bonus. I felt sorry for the people making Resident Alien. It's a great television show. Wonderful, silly, hokey at times, but it's fun. It's a really good eclectic group of characters and actors. And it's getting canceled. And Alan Tudyk said from San Diego Con, it was like, yeah, because no one's watching it on Sci-Fi on the night it airs first. And so they really aren't counting it. It's like, they have computers. They should be counting every time it's viewed. And I know a bunch of people who started watching it like in latest season 2 and season, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and on my feed, I see on my Doctor Who feed, a guy I do podcasts with who's English and doesn't watch much sci-fi other than a handful of things. He was loving it. And I was like talking to him, I was like, well, you love it because it's silly. I was like, I didn't think that you would like this, Jeff. I didn't think so, but he's, and I've seen this build, and now they're taking it off, and it's just
the same thing happened with Ash versus the Evil Dead. Is it's on a network that's known for bodice ripping romance drama, and then you have this show that nobody's watching. It's getting a few 100,000 views on the cable network. Then it goes to Netflix, and it does really, really well. Certainly well enough to have supported the show, but the show's already canceled by then, and the lead's like, okay, I'm done. I'm broken. I'm not going to go back and do anything more this ever again. And then you're talking about Alan Tudyk. Well, we got Serenity because Firefly DVDs sold so well, not because anybody was watching it on Fox. So you used to have all these different vectors that could determine whether or not we got to have more of the thing that we love. And you minimize that. You try to make everything like this monocultural, you have to stream it or it doesn't exist. There's always, well, for starters, there's just the rebel and people. It's like, no, you don't get to tell me how I'm going to enjoy the arts that I want to enjoy. But also there are things where I have to have it because I want to have it when I want to have it. I'm not going to rely on you to tell me when I can have access to this thing, especially if it's something I really love.
Yeah, I was that way in the early part of the internet, and I didn't have cable, and I was living I was working 3 jobs, 6 days a week to just keep a roof over my head and have health insurance. And I pirated shit. I said, fuck these guys. I'll buy the stuff like the Doctor Who and, when New Who was actually out first to back out. I'll boot it when the DVD comes out. I'll buy it, but I'm not paying for cable. I'm not giving, I refuse to have Comcast in my house, except for their internet, because I had to in the building I lived in. But they're the Antichrist. They're just, I would rather be thrown off a cliff onto spikes than have to sit in a Comcast phone queue trying to dispute a bill. But yeah, we're just going to turn to a podcast about physical media. I think it's good. And I think some of these collections are wonderful, and you get a lot book for your buck. I have a problem with poor Infantino. He gets fired as publisher, and then he just goes back to drawing Flash. And I feel like he didn't give a shit. It's real rushed. They don't find the right inker for him. I don't think Giordano and some of the guys they put on him as inkers helped him.
Dennis Jensen was inking him on Flash for a while there, and I think it was some of the best stuff he ever did.
Yeah, see,
but that's the exception.
I miss inkers, man, because sometimes an inker made a book.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was complaining about the modern artwork, and that's one of the things is that you would have that synergy between a penciler and an inker where the combined was greater than the individual parts sometimes.
Swanderson.
Byrne actually thinks he inks himself better than anybody else, and he is incorrect. Everybody inks Byrne better than Byrne inks Byrne. Whereas George Perez, nobody can ink him as well as he can ink himself.
Oh no, but I like it when I have this one, I like Terry Austin on him for X-Men. That's his X-Men. And Joe Sinnott inking him before when he was just the artist, because I've talked about this on my podcast, that once Joe Sinnott is on FF, they keep him on it I think it's a conscious decision of editorial that we're going to move. You can read a John Buscema FF and see it's John Buscema, but you also see that it's an FF book because Joe Sinnott is on it. And same with Buckler and Perez.
Yeah, Palmer on Avengers.
All of them. He's the part that makes it house style for that book. And I think it's a cleaner. I think they really wanted FF to maintain a certain level of a certain style of art all the way through. And they used Joe Sinnott to kind of do it subliminally in the background. Because I still see it's Byrne art. I still see it's Perez art, but I also see it's really neat. It's tidy, very tidy. And he doesn't mess it up. But I do prefer Byrne by himself, especially his early FF, because he really is heavier on the inks, because like Jack was very heavy on the inks when he inked himself in the early issues. So it's just, I miss that. I miss the good inker artist combinations, especially when you find a good one. First time I saw Ordway ink Perez, I think it was an All-Star Squadron annual. It was perfection. Sorry, I will rant on inkers all day long.
No, I'm an inking geek, so I'm right there with you.
The great ones. Al Williamson. Who was one? One called a guy named Carlos Garcon.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And ones I hate. There's people that I've got a 50-50 love. Romeo Tangel.
I'm not a fan of Tangal. I
do not mind him when he was doing Titans.
That's actually my problem. Is him inking Perez makes me so angry because I feel like anybody would have been better inking Perez on that book than him. But when Tangal would ink other people, like after Perez or like he was doing Titan stuff, but he wasn't doing it with Perez, but he was bringing that Perez quality to their line. That I didn't mind so much. But Tangal and Perez makes me angry because I just feel like it quashes.
Romeo.
Yeah,
I think that was George picked him because I don't know, but I've seen him mess up an artist.
Mm-hmm. But and you're talking about like Perez. Perez is such an interesting guy, but he's got such a strong line. But you put him with somebody like Klaus Janson on the Logan's Run adaptation, for instance.
That's really weird.
You've never seen that before from either artist. They putting those two together. I like it, but it's
really weird. I think some of the first of his art. I mean, I remember the first page of art I saw him do was Avengers 141, where Beast is bouncing down the street, and fucking they put Vinnie Coletta on him. It's like, you asses! It's his first issue, and you give him to Vinnie.
Well, that's literally the reason why. Is because his first issue is like, we'll just throw it at Vinnie.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, but his Man Wolf. When they made Man Wolf a sword and sorcery character in space, it's just amazing. But I do miss. But I like. I'm reading the ROM omnibuses, and I've gotten to the Steve Ditko part where Sal's left the book, and every issue for the most part is inked by a different person.
Well, I know P. Craig Russell did really some of that, and that stuff was really good looking. I don't know who else inked him, but the ones that P. Craig Russell did were really nice.
They're the best. He did the finale of when they wrote out the dire race. It was really good, but he had Brent Breeding, so it looked really clean and crisp. He had, I think Frank Miller did one.
That's an interesting combination.
Everybody. And they were all good inkers. And I think I'm not, a lot of 70s Ditko I don't really like. But I do love
Woody inking him. Woody inking him on Stalker.
Starman was inked well.
Yeah. Woody inking him on Stalker was awesome.
Yeah. And who inked him on Romeo Tangel inked him on the Starman series he did with Paul Levitt.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I tidied it up. It was, yeah.
That I liked that fairly well. Yeah, I haven't read it all, but what I read was pretty good.
Yeah, no, people should really follow Paul Levitt. You want to structure a story. I saw someone post his rules of plotting, A plot, B plot, C plot, how he traffic copped his writing. I went, oh, and then he went, oh crap, most of them are doing that. I didn't know that's how it was set up. It was pretty interesting. But I'm a big Levitz fan.
Yeah, no, there are certain guys where if they're writing a story, I'm going in there confident I'm going to be at least like it's going to be passable at minimum, but probably I'm going to enjoy it. Conway's one, Levitz is one. Where I can just rely on these guys. More often than not, they're going to entertain me. So I'm always happy to see them, in especially in certain eras. Levitz in the 70s and 80s, absolutely. I'm not so much going to jump onto his like pre-New 52 Legion stuff as much. I wasn't as wild about that.
I've not read most of it. I at one point, as a Legion fan, should read it. I got it.
Yeah.
So.
And somebody who's not reliable, but I sometimes sometimes really loved Jim Shooter. He had what I liked. He had a really nice run at the very end of the right before the New 52, and a lot of people hated it. I think because he changed
that last
things.
story. I really wanted to find him and hit him.
But really, I enjoyed that year he did.
Lazy,
right?
Man. I felt it was just this terrible, and I think it was just inconsistent. It was because he could still do it. He did Secret Wars years after because his original Legion when he was 14 is still some of the best Legion ever written.
But okay, I'm not sure we're talking about the same thing. Are we talking about the stuff he did with Francis Manipool in like 2009 or so?
Manipool stuff, that last arc. Yeah, that one where the villains are old descendants of Justice League.
Yeah, okay.
That one tweaked me. I was like, what?
Yeah, and I know he kind of broke Manipool a little bit on that book because the constant nitpicking. But then he turns around and does the New 52 Flash, and it's probably the best art of his career.
So yeah, I haven't gotten that. That's going to be coming out in a very small Omni to fit between Manipool and Williamson or something. They said that there's this gap filler coming out, and I think it's his stuff. So
yeah, I was seeing that you were motioning off camera. So like, did you need to take care of something?
No. My wife just walked in. I'm just telling her to be quiet.
No worries.
She knew we were going to be there.
I think when it comes to the trying to write in the X-Men mode, I think Conway does a much better job with that than Roy Thomas is, for instance.
Oh, yeah. Roy didn't adapt. I love Roy, but Roy, I liked his West Coast Avengers a great deal. It wasn't the greatest. It was good Avengers. It wasn't great comics, but I was entertained. And I liked the lineups he created because he liked to fiddle with his lineups. He was like Engelhardt. Oh, people are going to come and go. We're going to just mix it up.
Plus, I really love Dave Ross drawing that stuff.
Yeah, I did too. He got a good run. And I like Clint as Goliath. I'm glad they brought him back as it for a long period of time. But Jerry's a better writer than in a lot of ways. One, my wife is a Law and Order junkie. It's her white noise. It's on instead of the music that is on. And I go, yeah, Jerry Conway. He wrote a lot of comic books. He's the head writer. He was the head writer on the show for years. He's a producer now and just sitting back cashing checks. But I think he knew how to write people. I think because I forget he's the Justice League writer for this long period of time because I just forgot about it. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Most of the time the stories were good. I mean, he missed something. Everybody misses. But for the most part, it was pretty good. I think, but he ran out of steam. He also, I didn't read this, but I was listening to an interview and someone talked about, he was 20 years old or 21 years old when he became an editor at DC and started doing all this. And then someone did the math and he were like, how old were you when you killed Gwen Stacy? And he went, 18. What the,
Right.
He was, that I didn't know. I thought he was like 25, something like that. A grown man. And one of the most important comics in comic history. And he was a kid. It's like him and Shooter. It's like, what's with you two? So I just find that amazing. And I liked his era of Justice League. I think Justice League from like 100, about 150 is really solid. I mean, there's some clunkers. Hey, can we take one quick pause?
Certainly.
Yeah. Just give me a couple minutes. I just got to run to the restroom.
No worries.
Oh my God. Shit. Hi, I'm Ross Aiken, and I'm here to talk to you about my new podcast, Stop, Let's Team Up. I already do 2 podcasts, Gallifrey's Most Wanted and The Runcible Report, but there's my first nerd love, and that's comic books, and especially Super Team Comic. Started with Legion and The Avengers, and I kept on going, and I just feel like I want to talk about them. So, coming up in the third week of November, I will present an episode presenting the first appearance of a super team that I care about deeply, the Guardians of the Galaxy. Month to month, other aspects of super team comic books, like creators, story arcs, origins, and roll call. And I hope you join me. I hope to have some guests to talk about the historical aspect of certain comics and their creators, and just people who love superhero comic books as much as me. So, until then, Thanksgiving weekend, I'll be reading comics. Hey, sorry about that.
No worries. It's funny. Usually I'm the one.
I took my boot off because it was starting to get hot. And then I went up to go to the bathroom. I was like, shit, you can't walk?
Sorry.
Moron. At least I don't have to use the crutches. I'm in a walking boot because they took the pins out, but my foot is fucked up.
I'm sorry, man.
Sorry. But then Richard Howell does the middle page with some of the other heroes, which is okay. I like Richard Howell.
Yeah.
He's not the greatest.
He was good on the Hawk World, the Hawkman stuff in the early 80s.
Yeah.
The problem is his time period was so, he's in the 80s and everybody wants to see the new hot style, and he has a very nostalgic retro style. So he just never really fit in with the comic industry to my mind. So unless you have a project that's backward looking like this, he always felt out of sync.
He's not the greatest. I think his Vision of Scarlet Witch was okay. I don't know if it was appropriate for the story they were telling. The 12-issue maxi series they did.
I don't know if Joe Sinnott, I think Sinnott inked him on Vision and Scarlet Witch, right? I don't think that did him any favors either.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was okay. It was that. I like that 12-issue miniseries. I think it's really good to see because it's every month of the year and you get to see it. Pietro's still a prick. Just awful. Your brother is a cancer. James Robinson wrote a Scarlet Witch series.
Yeah.
I'm most of the way through it, and she just basically tells him, we need you to stop fighting the Civil War. And she goes, one, I don't want anything to do with you or any of that, but mostly you're dead to me. It was like, wow, finally tell your brother is a cancer on your life and a bigot to your ex-husband to go pound rock.
Yeah.
Because it's a piece of shite. Heck, I don't think Justice League Detroit's that bad, is it? I mean, I read very little of it, but it's okay. It's DC superhero. I mean, is it terrible? But I mean, I think
I personally, for me, the Detroit era, I think it's the next best after Titans of capturing the zeitgeist in terms of team books in the time period. It's just that I don't think that Justice League fans wanted their iconic heroes replaced. I think that's the real problem.
Yeah.
I also think I love Chuck Patton. I don't think Chuck Patton was the guy to do Detroit. I think it got a lot better with Luke McDonnell because he was on their wavelength more.
Well, Luke McDonnell is just this unsung hero. His Iron Man, some of my favorite. I'm a huge Suicide Squad fan. I think it's one of the best comic books of that length. It's like, I think.
Well, and I have to say, Bill Ray inking him on that book is about the best I think he's ever done art-wise. Like, I think the combination of those two is great.
Chuck Patton had to not grow on me because I didn't read the issues, but I like when I saw his art, like on cards and stuff, that he really. I like the way his characters move. That's where he shows them in action. His action stuff is stuff I really, really, really enjoy.
And he was one of the guys who did stuff when Perez couldn't do it on Titans. And I liked his Titans stuff fairly well too. Like Tales of the Teen Titans when Perez moved on to the Baxter series. That was some good looking stuff.
Yeah. Oh no, he's solid. I mean, it's also you're having to invent characters. I mean, Vibe was again, it's a middle-aged white guy creating a Hispanic
breakdancer.
Breakdancer. It's like, come on, man.
Well,
I like Gypsy. I liked Steel. I liked all four of the new characters. I really enjoyed what they did and it was a bad book, like Justice League Task Force.
Mm-hmm.
Building that relationship, taking that relationship that Manhunter has with her in Justice League Detroit and carrying it out, that they have a very father-daughter, that they have a close, real relationship. And you saw it in later books. And Justice League Task Force was 90s drivel, but that one thing, I mean, I jumped in and out, but I like. Did
you read any of the Christopher Priest stuff with Sal Voluto?
Yeah, I did.
That's good stuff.
It's okay.
Yeah, I like it.
Priest.
But yeah, I like that relationship. And Vixen, I've read the story from Canceled Comics Cavalcade, and I really enjoyed the Bob Oxner first story, and I really enjoyed the character both in Justice League and in Suicide Squad. So Vixen's one that you could tell he had a better idea of what he wanted to do with her, and her appearance in Justice League was strong.
Huh? She was like big, and she's bigger than I think we think, because in Justice League Unlimited, she's got a big part to play at times. She gets a lot of screen time because of that Jon Stewart stuff, and it's good. Oh God, I love her in Suicide Squad. I brought her in, and what's this gonna be? Oh, never mind. I'll just shut up because Ostrander just I've never read his Martian Manhunter, and I want to badly. It's coming out in a collection, and I'm gonna get it.
Oh, they're doing another collection. They had
they're doing it in they put it out. An Omni's coming out.
I did not know.
Compendium at different times. I
because
think
they released the first a year or so in trade, about in the I don't know, '08 or so. So I have those.
It's getting the DC's finest.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting.
Something like that. That's coming out because they just did Wrath of an Omnibus, and they're going to do it in a compendium, which is all the '70s stuff, like all the Aparo and all the Brave and the Bold appearances, and then they're going to do Ostrander's complete run.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to read it because I want to also read the modern Mr. Terrific origin story in the original form. They're doing this great. I'm reading this Mr. Terrific Year One mini. It's really good. It's a really good retelling of his origin and history, getting him up to date. And I liked it. I mean, but this basically the second issue is he meets the Spectre, and the Spectre tells him to take the name of Mr. Terrific or whatever the origin was. So I've never read the original, but I just thought I'd say, and it's not, I always like seeing Kevin Maguire art, but hey, I just got a Captain America, the second Grunwald Captain America omnibus, and the back 4 issues in the back is a prestige thing he did. Yeah, they just put it in there because it's where it belongs. I was like, yes, because I'm a big fan of Fabian. So
the Fabian ECA is the miniseries Adventures of Captain America and Bucky.
Put it in there because it's where it belongs. I was like, yes,
yeah,
because I'm a big fan of Fabian.
So. Well, and that's again, everybody was sleeping on Captain America in that time period. That book did not sell what it should have sold. It didn't get the attention it deserved. It still hasn't got the attention it deserves. It's a really great introduction to the character.
Yeah, but Marvel's pumping out 4 of those giant. They're fat. All 4 of them are going to be like 1,200 pages, and they're going to do all 10 years. They've already said it, and I bought it, and I've started reading Cap from Tales of Suspense, blah blah blah, whatever. And I'm about to start Englehart, which I bought the Englehart volume. Well, his was in one, was volume
Secret Empire, I think, right?
Yeah, but all of his issues, except for a couple, were in Captain America Volume 3. Then they reprinted the Kirby stuff, which came after him, as Volume 4. And they're going to do Volume 5, which is Stern, which goes right up to Grunwald. So I really am looking forward to getting back to that. Because I read that. I'm a Grunwald fan. So that's my era of Cap, really.
Same.
Even though the first Cap I read was the issue where he's on the beach in Miami fighting the 50s Cap by Englehart and Buscema. That's the first Captain America comic I ever read. So another comic where Englehart's Cap is very good.
Oh yeah,
it is very good. But
I'm looking at my shelves. I've got the essentials that they did, and then it's the Penguin Random House edition, and then I've got a couple of editions of the Dematisse Zek stuff, and in between there's like a Steranko collection, and then the Secret Empire on its own. Not the entire Englehart run, but just that one story in trade.
That's a good story. The Secret Empire is a good story, but I really enjoyed reading it. It just it was a white guy, 20-something white guy, right? His Falcon was okay. I think, and to be fair, I think Roy, when he introduced some of the African American, the Harlem characters for Sam, they did an okay job for the time. That they talk and jive a little bit, but not often. The gangstery guys do. But I think him having Englehart and them having the love interest for Falcon call him out at that time. I remember that era. I remember my father made me sit down at 10 years old and watch the Watergate hearings going, president's a crook, watch this. And then, just going, this is called watch it. It's accountability. It's like, I'm 10. Can I watch a cartoon? No, you need to watch this. Pay attention. Okay, Dad, whatever. But I'm glad he did, I had some idea of what was going on. But yeah, I'm enjoying, I'm looking, I paused it because work got crazy and then other things, but I want to get back to it because I was going to say, I'll skip over I got back to Englehart in my read through because I read that out of order. I said, I'll skip it. And I said, no, I'll read it again because it's, Englehart. We had a 5th week. When I read, I owned a comic shop when this happened, and I would have just liked not to have as many fucking books, because they're terrible about holding them. We always suspected they were holding books printed and then dumping them all at one time. And then, it was just odd. If the direct market was great in some ways, but ultimately, I think damaged comic, this type of not damage this comic, but I remember going to 7-Eleven, getting my comics at 7-Eleven. There's no, or being in a store and going, Mom, can I get a comic, one comic? And she'd go, okay, you know what I mean? So there's no gateway for kids. unless your dad took you to the comic shop. And when I ran comic shops in the 80s, sometimes that wasn't good. Dad wasn't getting his stuff. He was there for him, and the kid had to keep their hands off. And I always kind of like, dude, buy a kid a comic, turn them on to this.
Yeah, I always had quarter bins for the kids. I always tried to make sure I had something for them.
I always missed out that they didn't have all age comics. They don't. You need a team. I think Wade, when he was writing kids and David and them, they write it and kids buy it. They're writing for their audience, but they're also writing for the older audience. Does that make sense? Like a kid could read Impulse. A kid could read Robin. You know what I mean? I think Young Justice, kids could read it because it was silly at times. And it made fun of grown-ups, which kids love to do. So,
Well, you're 100% right. That what happened, though, kids still read comics. They just go to the book fairs. They go to the bookstores. They're reading Dogman. They're reading Captain Underpants. They're reading the Raina Telgemeier books. They're reading manga. They're just not reading superhero comic books that we read, but they found their own way into the art form.
I think DC and Marvel didn't do themselves a service by not putting books in Scholastic at book fairs, because I read the most recent Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's being sold to kids. That's going there, and it's a smaller size for their hand. It's a good idea. I think there is a lot more all age comics coming in different directions, and I think you're right. A lot of it is via manga, via the Mr. Underpants, the illustrated books, the kids for YA. Matt Smith, I got his Mischiefs of Magic book. He did a couple Starmans one of the times past, and he did some Sandman Mystery Theater, but he's doing all the DC Magic characters. There's kids at a summer camp at the local library, and the Phantom Stranger's their camp counselor, and he's wearing a little baseball cap, and he's got a whistle and a clipboard, and it's just silly, but kids could get in and go, who's Deadman? Who is Raven? Who is the Phantom Stranger? I read it in a sitting, and it was just silly and fun and entertaining, but I'll give that to a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old.
Yeah, and you've got those Nubia books, you've got the Young Wonder Woman books, you've got some Titan stuff they've been doing with like Beast Boy and Raven. There's stuff out there. They've started to work on that market finally, but
I think DC's done better at it than Marvel, but it's get it out there, man. It's gateway drug.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 7 and 8 when I was reading my first comics.
There's still a kid today that's having their Silver Age, so that's cool.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No, you look like. Are you hurting?
I'm hurting a bit. Yeah. I'm fidgeting. I got to go ice this.
Yeah. But, so listen, we've done 3.5 hours. You've given me plenty to work with.
Sorry, man.
It's been a lot. No, it's
dude.
Don't
as you see fit.
I figured that out pretty early on, so no worries. But listen, it was a great conversation, and you're obviously super knowledgeable. So if you think of any other ones that you'd like to do, let me know, and we'll get that worked out.
You got any ones you haven't done? I'll go look and see what you've done. But
I haven't done a lot of the Secret Files yet, because what ended up happening is I wanted to cover some of the pre-crisis stuff, and I had to invent stuff. So I invented, like I did Untold Legends of the Batman. I'm doing Action Comics 500 to cover like pre-crisis Superman. So I haven't really done very much with the Secret Files on the Secret Files podcast yet. So no worries. And I know there's been a few that you've pointed out that you'd like, but keep me in mind, and I'll keep you in mind, and we can do this again.
I'd love to. I'd love to have you come on my show for something. If you
awesome,
got a favorite team up book,
let me know. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But you're DC and Marvel guy, or what's your?
I'm strongly DC, but it was funny when you started talking about Image. I like you. I wasn't in love with Image when it started, but I've definitely invested in it more in recent years.
Yeah,
I read Savage Dragon every month. I read a number of titles from them, so I like it when you've got a creator who has a passion and they're still trying to do universes as well. So yeah.
I've really dug what Ghost Machine has done. I'm not a horror comic writer, but I really do like Hyde Street.
Cool.
Really, really like it. And I do like Geiger and Junkyard Joe. And I think they're all doing good work.
Yeah.
And the Redcoat one, which I thought would be silly, and it was just a vanity project in a way to have Brian Hitch draw beautiful stuff, but it's a really good alternate history, sci-fi, time travel book. and he meets, like, he hangs out with, and it jumps around his timeline because he accidentally became immortal. He was spying on Ben Franklin, and he fell through a lamp, and there was a cult making all the founding fathers immortal, and he got the last Zappa energy. So now he's immortal. He dies, but he's like Captain Jack and Doctor Who. He dies and he resurrects a little while later. So he's had to dig himself out of his own grave more than once. But it jumps around. So at one point, his sidekick is a young Albert Einstein. It's neat. It's neat. And he meets this African-American time traveler who's trying to prevent this racist from the future from changing the Civil War. So it's really good. And it's Brian Hitch. It's really pretty. So.
Yeah. The only thing I tried Geiger and it didn't really click for me. So I didn't get into the other stuff. And I didn't like that they weren't in a shared reality for the most part. But I do have
certain ones are. The Ghost Machine stuff is the Geiger, Junkyard Joe, and Redcoat, and I think Hyde Street are all in one.
I've got the Junkyard Joe trade, but I haven't read it yet.
Trade?
The Junkyard Joe.
That's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
My father's a Vietnam vet, and most of my friends.
Yeah, same here.
Parents, so it's basically about a secret robot that's been sent to Vietnam, and he is kind of sentient, so he becomes friends. And then when someone wants to do something bad with him, he turns himself on and he goes and looks for his one surviving friend who had created a comic strip about him.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can tell
Walker, kind of way.
Yeah,
it's really good. It's good, beautiful Gary Frank art. I think it's as a standalone graphic novel, it's amazing.
That's awesome. See, you can tell. Obviously, that's GI Robot. You can tell with Geiger, it's the Atomic Knights plus a Human Bomb. So I definitely have interest. That's why I bought the trade. I just never got around to reading it. So on your recommendation, I'm gonna give that a try.
I think you like it. I mean, I like Geiger, but how they're breaking it up into story arcs for the trades is like, I want to see what it's like because I'm reading it issue to issue.
Yeah,
and it's frank and it's good world building.
Yeah.
They're doing good. It's like the Geiger. I didn't think after the first one, what are you going to do for the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter? But I like it because there's a lot of that stuff John's know how to do with Flash and Green Lantern and other books. He's doing that. He's introducing characters, bringing back recurring villains. There's a female one, like there's a Superman, there's a Superwoman, but this is in a post-apocalyptic world, so this is the way they are. So it's okay. It's good world building, but the one and done one definitely is Junkyard Joe.
Yeah, I'll read that
because it ends with an open ending, but it also the story you can read it and be fine.
Cool.
Because that's not going to be an ongoing. He's just appearing. He's now in Geiger. It's in the future.
Sure.
So he's in Geiger as a secondary character.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we can keep going forever if we let it happen.
All right, man.
So I'm going to turn you loose
and get ready. A buddy's coming to help me rebuild a bookshelf so I can put some books away too.
Okay. Thanks,
right,
Matt. I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye.
Arrows of neon and flashing marquees out on Main Street, Chicago, New York, Detroit, and it's all on the same street. Your typical city involved in a typical daydream. Hang it up and see what tomorrow brings. We think you're special. Alan Boyce Jr., Dr. ANJ, The Bat Pod, Between the Pages blog, Billy Hines Comics Enabler and Victim, Brett von Schlosser, Canoes, Chris at Bat Books for Beginners, Chris A. Field, Other Verse Games, Chris Dunford, Dave's Comic Heroes blog, Derek W.C., DC Dave, Ed Moore, The Hammer Strikes, Random Geeky Stuff, Irredeemable Shag, JMT Productions, Keith G. Baker, King Dinosaur, Mr. Perturbed, Pop Culture Basement, Relatively Geeky Podcast Network, Richard Field, Ronald Clark, Scott X, Seniors Moore, Superbound, Thirsties New and Used, Thrangy, Ola Bekenko, Willie Yarbrough, and Ivan Gravina.
The preceding program is a non-profit fan production. Any copyrighted materials contained therein are believed borrowed under fair use with no copyright infringement intended. Please feel free to leave comments at Rolled Spine's Productions WordPress blog. You can also send us Twitter comments through the Rolled Spine Podcast Twitter. Thank you for listening.